Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. This is Diane Gardner, and this podcast is where we dig deep into the profit and cash flow leaks of your business. I'm so glad you could join us today. Today, I'm going to deviate from our regular programming and bring you some information that you may or may not be aware of. So let me hop on over. I'm going to give you some PowerPoint slides for those of you who are audio or visual learners and not just audio. So hold on just 1 second and let me get my slideshow going for you. Are you ready for the Corporate Transparency Act? Have you even heard about this? They've been talking about it in my world for a little while now. And this particular act came into place as of January 1st of 2024, which as we're recording this is just recently. So throughout this, we're going to be talking about how to navigate these new federal requirements for our businesses. This Corporate Transparency Act, or we'll refer to it to CTA, because that's a lot of big words otherwise, it was enacted to combat the misuse of shell companies. And it's supposed to increase transparency in business ownership. And it was effective January 1st. Now, I don't know about you, but all the small business owners that I'm aware of are doing business legitimately. They're registered with their states, they're filing with the IRS. So I'm not really sure how much information our government is going to get from this, but we'll find out, won't we? Welcome to this episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. This is the podcast where we dig deep into the profits and the cash flow leaks in your business. I'm so glad you could join me today. Today, instead of having a guest on our program, I'm going to be talking to you about the newly enacted Corporate Transparency Act. And if you're like most small business owners, you're going, what in the heck is that? So let me hop on over. I'm going to pull up some PowerPoint slides because it might make this a little easier to understand. If you're listening to it through audio, then just go ahead and listen along. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see a little bit more information about what I'm talking about. Let me just share my screen and I'll join you over there. My question for you today is, are you ready for the Corporate Transparency Act? This is something new that you may or may not have even heard about. Your accountant may not be talking to it, or they might even be. Your attorney may or may not be talking to you about it. But I thought it was an important topic. And yes, I know it doesn't really affect your bottom line profits unless you get tagged with a penalty, then it'll affect them greatly. But I wanted to bring this to your attention just to try to do my part to help the home service businesses operate in accordance with what the government says that we need to do. So just an overview of the Corporate Transparency Act, or we're going to call it the CTA, just to keep it short throughout the rest of this presentation. This act was set up to combat the misuse of shell companies. It was also aims to increase transparency in business ownership. So it's going to affect every business that is formed through a Secretary of State filing. That more than likely includes your business, it includes my business, it includes an LLC that I have for the ownership of my building. It includes an inactive LLC that I own that I've never done anything with, but still sitting out there registered with the Secretary of State. This particular act went into effect on January 1st, 2024. It applies to corporations and LLCs that are formed in 2024 going forward, And it also applies to those of us who were in business prior to January 1st, 2024. It does exclude sole proprietors, but it does not exclude single member LLCs since they are formed through a Secretary of State. So it is relative for every entity that's registered with a Secretary of State or something similar. It includes single member LLCs and even inactive LLCs. Who is exempt from this CTA or the Corporate Transparency Act? Well, the businesses that are exempt are what the government is calling large businesses. So this is businesses with more than 20 employees and more than $5 million in top line revenue. Now, what happens if you had 20 employees and you drop down to 18? Well, you're going to have to file this particular form within a certain number of days when that happens. Or you're at over 5 million in receipts this year, but maybe next year you're not. Then you'll have to register just like the rest of the businesses. It also excludes regulated entities like banks and insurance companies, and it excludes some nonprofits and other very specific entities. The purpose of this Corporate Transparency Act, or the CTA, is to create this big database of beneficial owners. It targets entities with complex ownership structures. So you've all seen the pictures where you've got this business who's owned by that business, and now we've got a management company, or we've got a family limited partnership out there. So we get multiple levels of businesses owning each other. And then finally, we get back to the actual person who's the ownership of all of it. So it's looking for those types of structures. Supposedly, it's going to prevent illegal activities like money laundering. What does your reporting company report about itself? Well, when you go onto their site and you file the report, you need to be ready to put in your entity's name or your business's name, your street address. I believe it does not like P.O. boxes, so you'll have to use a street address, your jurisdiction information, or the jurisdiction of formation. Sorry, I'm misreading my own slides. The jurisdiction, so where you're located, the state that you're formed in, and your taxpayer identification number. So you may have to pull out that EIN letter that you got from the IRS when you were first formed, but you'll need to have this basic information when you log on to the site and actually file this report. I want to talk a little bit about who's a beneficial owner. You're going to hear the term beneficial owner quite often as we talk through this topic. So a beneficial owner is somebody who directly or indirectly owns the business, at least 25% of the business, and they might not necessarily own it on paper, but because of a family relationship, actually own part of this business. So then we say any contract, arrangement, understanding, relationship, or otherwise. Or it's somebody who exercises substantial control over that reporting company. So you might be thinking of a CFO or somebody in that capacity that's making financial decisions for that business. So our beneficial owner is not necessarily going to be the people who are getting a K-1 in your business. What does your reporting company have to report about these beneficial owners? So we're going to need to have their full legal name, their date of birth, their current residential address, and identification number such as a driver's license or a passport, or that beneficial owner may log into the FinCEN site and obtain an identifier number for themselves. You'll have to be prepared to upload a digital copy of your identifying document. So if you used your driver's license number, you'll need to upload a copy of that driver's license. If you used your passport number, you will have to upload a copy of the passport. So be prepared to have those things scanned and ready to go ahead of time. When we have a brand new entity that's formed, we have 90 days to get this information submitted to FinCEN. And FinCEN stands for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. So this is not the IRS, this is not your state, this is not that type of thing. This is actually bigger than that. It is through this Financial Crimes Enforcement Network organization. If your company or if your entity was in existence and formed prior to January 1st of 2024, the initial report is due by December 31st, 2025. It must be, and I'm going to say that should be December 31st, 2024, not 25. My bad on that one. And it must be updated within 30 days after making any change to information that was previously submitted. So if we had an address change, or if we changed an owner in our business, or those types of things, we have 30 days to get a correction or a change made out into the FinCEN site. If we are willful about not filing or doing it on purpose, there is a big, huge penalty. It is $500 a day, up to $10,000. And it can also include 2 years of imprisonment. So this is pretty serious. We want to make sure that we are taking care of this filing responsibility. So here's some examples of changes that would have to be reported within that 30-day window. If we added or removed a beneficial owner, if we added or removed a person with substantial influence, we changed the residential address of a beneficial owner, or we changed the business address of the company applicant, or we became a large operating company who now no longer qualifies as exempt. And that was my example before, is your sales were high enough and now they're not. Or you had more than 20 employees and now you don't. So we have some examples of changes there, and we have 30 days to get these changes filed and adjusted on the FinCEN website. It is a very easy procedure to do. You're going to log into https:// BOIE BOIEFILING .fincen.gov. And this is where you're going to go to file this process for the first time, and then subsequently anytime changes are made for your business. So it's a very easy filing process online. There are no filing fees. You will be given a FinCEN identifier number, and each beneficial owner can also get a FinCEN identifier number. If they choose to do that, then any changes that occur in their personal information, they are responsible for making them on the FinCEN site, and your business entity does not have to report that information, because now it's up to the beneficial owner to report it. Here is just a picture of what it looks like when you go out to the FinCEN site. You're just going to click the box that says file, the BOIR, and go on through the process. It just takes a few minutes to file it. But the biggest thing is having some sort of a checklist, so that periodically throughout the year, like every month, you're going to stop and say, have there been any changes that I need to report? What happens if we don't report? Well, an individual who willfully provides false or fraudulent information or willfully fails to report a complete or updated beneficial ownership information faces a civil penalty of $500 per day for as long as the violation continues, and they may face a criminal fine of up to $10,000 and or 2 years imprisonment. And this was something that I did a copy paste right off of the FinCEN site. So we'd make sure that we have this information for you. There is a 90-day safe harbor if you voluntarily submit a report containing correct information. But these penalties are big. They can just go on, and they can suck a lot of money out of your business if we're not paying attention and we willfully decide not to file this. Where to find more information? There is a whole long list of frequently asked questions in regards to this topic. Here again, if you go out to www.fincin.gov/BOI-FAQS, www.fincin.gov/B as in boy, OI-FAQS. They have lots of information there, lots of examples of questions and answers, and fairly easy to navigate your way down through there. So that's all I have for you in this particular episode. I thought this was a topic that was so important to share because I don't want any of my listeners to find themselves with a penalty and they didn't even know that they had missed something. And I'm hoping that more accountants will be talking about this and more attorneys will be talking about this as we work our way through 2024 so that we can actually get these forms filed for everybody and get this filing taken care of and not be subject to any penalties. So I hope you found value in this particular episode. And I'm going to say this is a wrap for our Profitable Home Services podcast. Remember, it's not how much money you make, it's how much you keep. Be sure and grab a free digital copy of my Your Path to Profits books. In that book, I share 9 profit boosting tactics that will transform your home service business. Be sure and head over to yourpathtoprofitbooks.com. Once again, that's yourpathtoprofitbooks.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to have you as part of our community in one of our coaching programs where we're helping you drive those bottom line profits and find those hidden profit leaks. Thank you and have a wonderful day. We'll see you on the next episode.